Good morning, everyone. Welcome to this episode of the CPO series. I'm Alyssa. I'm a product manager with Dragonboat, and we're joined today by our special guest, Hitesh Anand. Our webinar today is hosted by Dragonboat, and we'll focus on up-leveling the product operating model. We want to learn about how this is done at various companies and what practical lessons product leaders can share with us from their experience. Before we kick off, I want to mention a few things. So first of all, this is a half-an-hour session. It'll be recorded and available on demand later with all our other webinars. Second, if you have questions during the presentation, you can submit those using the Q&A function, and we'll either take them live or we'll have a dedicated Q&A at the end. And finally, as you probably know, Dragonboat is a SaaS platform that enables product leaders to run their product operating model. So do check us out at dragonboat.io to learn more. Without further ado, I'd like to introduce today's guest, Hitesh Anand. Hitesh is the director of the Strategic Resource Group at Thomas H. Lee Partners. He works with portfolio companies and investment teams to improve operations and drive growth. Prior to his current role, Hitesh served as the CPO of Verify, a Visa company, and at Mobicon Asia. Prior to that, he held product leadership roles at Verifone and Citi Enterprise Payments. Welcome, Hitesh. We're excited to have you here with us today.
Thank you, Alyssa. Welcome you all. I'm excited to be part of this series. I know Dragonboat for a long time. I remember meeting Becky at Spaces when I was working on my own startup, and she was there as well. And it's interesting and very exciting to see the journey that Dragonboat has come through. Before I jump in, right, on the dysfunctions or issues in the product operating model, I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page what product operating model is. This has existed for quite some time in the industry, but now it's a lot more formal because of the breadth and the speed at which companies and teams are building products. So what it is essentially an underlying infrastructure or working mode or ritual that a CPO and his or her team runs to drive the success of the product organization, which in turn drive the success of the company for product and growth. That's what it essentially is. And as a company grows, it scales either in a portfolio or across geographies, we see that there are signs that this is failing more often than not. How do you get that? We have a problem. One is building the product org is not optimal. Are you building across from a platform perspective, component perspective, persona perspective, workflow perspective? You don't know. Some teams work. Some teams have a different model versus another team. So challenging in building the organization, having the right set of people that understand. Are they functional experts? Are they domain experts? Or are they platform experts? That's the first sign. People is always the first sign that you have a problem in your product operating model. The second is the driving vision and strategy. Are you building because this is what you have done and just incrementally going? Or do you have an overarching product strategy? Do you have a notion of diagnosis, a problem area, and focus for a year, next year, 3 years? Do you know how across the organization, different teams are using the strategic lens to prioritize? If you don't know, that's a key sign to use a platform to run your product operating model. The third is silos. Are teams cross-functional or are they working in their own domain? So for example, if you're launching a new feature, do people understand that it starts from onboarding, from SEO to onboarding, all the way through to usage? Or are you simply launching a feature for its own sake? If it's siloed, you have a problem and you need a product operating model, a platform. And then, are you leading with customer journey? Like I said earlier, is it growth, retention, and customer journey, or is it feature driven, feature factory, like Marty Keegan used to call it? And last but not the least, how are you driving innovation? Is it top down? Is it bottom up? Is it cross functional? Is it problem focused based on the industry or the customers? It's all internal. A mix of all is needed. If you're using only one or the other, you have a problem. And so I've listed a couple of areas where it's a key sign, but then I want to bring back to the industry. Sure, these are key signs. And why is it a problem? When we look at the industry, we found that 30% of product investments actually connect to revenue. That's a problem. You're wasting 70% of team capacity on building stuff that is not garnering revenue. Only 23% of companies, based on Linear survey, told us that they had accurate capacity planning, meaning they either overcommitted or undercommitted. And so that's a problem. Critical resource in the product engineering team going wasted. 87% of companies or product teams miss delivery regularly. And 70% of companies and product teams cannot plan across the product portfolio because there's no single source of truth. There are multiple roadmaps, a tech roadmap, a product roadmap, area B roadmap, area C roadmap. And so, so that's how it's a problem. That's how you can understand it's a problem. But before we go any further, I want you guys to check on a poll. Alyssa?
Yeah, so we have a poll and we'd like to ask the audience, does your product organization face any of the following? And we just want to give some options. But of course, we think that this is likely, a variety of experience, and maybe you've seen more than one of these things. So you're going to see a poll in just a second, hit your screen, and it would be lovely to see what the audience here thinks. So either roadmap delays, team burnout, reactive management, unclear product ROI. It seems like we're split across the board. Have you experienced these things, Hitesh? Do you want to give us
I just want to add, right? Roadmap delays is the first one. Like most companies look like we were promising to deliver A in this time frame. We are not there. Why? And this, it leads to, this is actually serial. It leads to like teams then rush to get to that objective. And then there's a reactive management. Well, there's a team burnout and reactive management. Well, let's move these resources here because we were promising, we did this to client A, we want to release this the reactive management takes over. That reactive management takes over, and then this product ROI is unclear. And so all these four are the top four problem areas from a board perspective, from an investor perspective, from a ELT perspective. There are others, but these are the top four. And I want to understand, like, Lisa said, where do you see this problem in your own product organization?
Yeah, so what we're seeing is that across the board, people, it looks like those are options for everybody. And those are symptoms for everybody that's hurting with their product operating model. But the roadmap delays seem to be the first, as you mentioned. And of course, road mapping is something that's essential to a lot of product teams. But Hitesh, as I imagine, he'll tell us later, sometimes just hitting those roadmap goals is not sufficient, and the product operating model and implementing it is so much more. So I will stop sharing that. Thank you, everybody, for participating.
So absolutely, Alyssa, you were right. Delivering the roadmap is not always the right approach. Delivering the right roadmap for the right value is the right approach. So that's why product teams need to start with, are we building the right stuff? So prioritize and build the right products, the right features, the right enhancements. Then make sure the customers have it in their hand in the right time so they can actually get value. Once it is in their hands, make sure they're able to use it well, and then in the end, capture value. And value capture is both ways, for the customers, the clients, as well as for the company in terms of dollars. So let me add some more details here. Prioritizing the right idea, which means you have to balance things that are, as any company, right? You have an existing product. If you're a startup, then you're starting, you don't have product market fit yet, but you have broad buckets. The first bucket is you building new value, new features, new products. Second bucket is you're fixing things that have already been delivered. The third bucket is foundation. The foundation can be a platform, can be productivity increases, putting a CI/CD platform in place. And the last bucket is future, things that you want to do in the future, net new, new geography. And you must balance these four appropriately for the right context of your company, the right context of your product, and make sure that the customer in the end it's about retention, it's about growth, and it's about keeping the lights on for them. That's how you have to prioritize. But you can do the Excel is always great, but then after a while you'll get overwhelmed. The second is, once you have figured out what to build, how much to allocate these 4 buckets, what to build, um, you have to then deliver it in the right time, in the appropriate chunks. A lot of teams think about delivery in a big bang. That doesn't always work well. That doesn't work well in most cases. So you have to deliver it in chunks. To deliver it in chunks, you need to manage it. You need to appropriately sequence it. You need to figure out the dependencies between different teams, different products. And for that, you need a single source of truth, right? Um, the third one is around adoption by users. Like I said earlier, around 70 odd percent of products are launched very poorly. They don't get the right, they have the right value, but the users don't see the right value. The GTM team, the product team are disjointed. The marketing team is on its own track. The customer success team doesn't have the right areas to help the client to be onboarded. So your product operating model needs to think about all of these together. It's not enough to launch a product, meaning deploy. It's launching doesn't mean deploy. Launching means customers using it incrementally. There was a Facebook metric, I think M7, how many users use this product in the first week and then come back. Those are the type of metrics you need to be able to measure. So you need to have telemetry in the product. You need to have metrics, what you want to measure. And then lastly, capture value. So capture value meaning see the product performance. Is it growing? Is it plateauing? If it's what cohorts, what type of clients are using it more? Who are the power users? That gives you insight into adjusting the next increment, adding value in area A versus area B, invalidating your original hypothesis, and so on. So for all of that, you need a operating model to be functioning well. You can do that. When I was a city around 12 odd years ago, we had an army of BAs who were doing that. So you can throw people, you can throw bodies, but then you can then instead use a platform such as Dragonboat or others to enable you to do all these things in the right manner. I think we go to the next slide. So we went right. We discussed the signs that something is wrong. We had delays. We talked about delays. How do you know it's a delay? When you have a buffered roadmap, right? You typically have engineering says I will deliver this in X weeks. Product adds a buffer and then sends that to sale. Single source of truth. There's no single source of truth, meaning Jira is not a single source of truth product. It is a single source of truth product for delivery, but it's not a single source of truth product for the product itself, meaning where are we allocating? How much are we spending? Is the spend aligned to a metric? How much should that metric move? And when the metric moves, what dollar value will we see? That is a single source of truth. Jira is part of it. Salesforce is part of it, but holistically as a whole, they don't match that. ROI, I keep getting this question on and off. Like, we spent X million dollars on product and engineering last year. What did we get? All we spent was on bug fixes. All we spent was on migration. Now, more often than not, there's an ROI to these two areas as well. You have to be able to explain it. You have to be able to state, hey, our strategy is to go up market. To go up market, we need to be able to service n number of clients on a daily basis. To do that, our current platform does not scale. Hence, we are migrating our database from A to B. And the ROI for that is incremental market in the upmarket space. That's an ROI. To do that, you need to have a connection from vision to strategy to your plan and delivery. Today, if it doesn't exist, something is wrong in your operating model. intake, this is the most common area where people fail, in my opinion. Why? Because they think having a backlog is an intake process. Absolutely not. Backlog is simply a tactical approach of intake. Real intake is how much of that is coming from discovery or talking to clients. Where is the feedback on the product that your CSM team has? Where is that uh, taken to? Is it in its own silo or it comes back to the product? Are you doing a review every month to prune the feedback tree? That is your intake process. If you're not doing it, then you have a wrong product operating model. Turnover, even though it's the fifth one, I would say it's one of the highest in my opinion. Without the right people, you cannot build products. So, you know, if you don't have the right people, or you have the right people and they're getting burnt out because they're being reactive, after launch, you're facing problems and you're fixing it. You are prioritizing change on a weekly basis, based on what the sales team is saying or what the CEO is saying, what I call the hippo effect, the highest paid, I forget the actual, or you are in this, what some people call the PM hamster wheel, meaning you just hire more PMs to deliver, to get delivery back on track. But what that does is, the more you add people, the more it delays. I think there's an excellent book that I think some of you know about, the Mythical Man Month, and one of the values I got reading that book and then seeing in real life is sometimes less is more. So it's about the right people, the right number of people, the right process, the right enabler to get your product operating model in place to get the delivery of the product and the value in time. I want to take you back, having explained and having told all this to you, back to my own prior life. I started my career as an engineer, then I moved over to the dark side, as my engineering friends tell me, and move over to dark side to build products. And I have seen, when I started building products, product operating model was at its infancy. It was about talking to few customers, getting their insight and building a product, and then taking it from there. And since then, it has evolved tremendously. But even then, even today, when I look at companies, even my large startup and the companies that we work with at THL, one of the fundamental things that keeps coming back is, where are we spending our money? How are we delivering to the promises that we said we would? Are those promises, when will those promises show an impact to the top line or the bottom line? And based on the learnings of those deliveries, what should we do next? That is a fundamental story across my journey of being a product manager and being a CPO and the few companies I work with. And I'll one particular example comes to light is, I was looking at a company. They had a great team, they had a great product line, they had a great CPO. They lacked the process, they lacked the rituals, and for them, a tool like Dragonboard was helpful in codifying the rituals. They had everything, they just were not working it in the optimal way. For some other companies, a tool like Dragonboard will help in putting rituals in place. The model of doing discovery, right? Prioritization, allocation, delivery, measuring metrics. So this can work both ways. For a company that has the right model of working but cannot scale because now they're either on Excel or manual, a tool like Dragonboard can help a lot. For a company that doesn't have that, it gives you the underpinning structure of what to do right. And you don't have to be right in every pillar day one. You can start saying, hey, you know what? We see that our biggest problem is after launch, um, clients always come back. We have lots of bugs, which means we're doing something wrong in discovery. We don't understand really well the customer needs, and we rush to build it. Let's make sure that is done really well. And Dragonboat or tool like this can help. So that's where I want to, there's no single story. There are lots of stories around it. What I have learned is having a single source of truth is one of the key enablers for having the right product operating model, whatever that model is, contextual for you. So to wrap it up, key takeaways: look for key signs. Look for key signs that you are either dysfunctional or things are not working. Traditional road mapping doesn't cut it, meaning the whole notion of a Gantt chart as a roadmap doesn't cut it. In the end, it's about value tied to moving a metric that's tied to delivering top line or bottom line. And then, like I said, you need a single source of truth. You need a single source of truth across delivery, prioritization, allocation, and the outcome metrics itself.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Hitesh. And thanks for sharing the stories with us. It's always good to see somebody that's come through it and really has a lot of detailed experience to share. I want to invite now everybody that hasn't already done so to please submit your questions during using the Q&A function. And while the audience is submitting their questions, I just want to mention a few words about our sponsor, Dragonboat. Dragonboat is the central hub for your entire product operating model, and it enables everyone in your organization, from product leader to product operations, to align on strategies, evaluate opportunities, and manage trade-offs, all driving maximum business impact. So do check us out. We're at dragonboat.io for CPOs, dragonboat.io/CPO. I'd also like to invite you to a free virtual summit hosted by Dragonboat on July 23rd. Join us to hear how leading product organizations accelerate revenue through world-class product execution and get exclusive access to powerful playbooks used by executives at Google, Toyota, US Bank, and others. This is an event designed specifically for product or product ops leaders, so do check it out. You can sign up today by scanning the QR code on the screen or going to dragonboat.io/accelerate. Excellent. So let's see, let's take a look at the questions that are coming in. We have a couple. One of them is, what are some positive signs that you're running your product model well and that your product operating platform is a success?
Yeah, no, that's a great one, Alyssa. I want to answer this question by saying there is no ideal product operating model. It is always contextual. What works best for you in your current setup? A few good signs, like a lot of companies that I know, a lot of product teams I know are transitioning. Like they're always in transition. They went from a feature factory, as Marty Keegan calls it, to a more outcome oriented. And the good signs are, one is that you have a strategy, you have a product strategy. Number one. Number two, you have defined outcome metrics like growth or usage, cost. You have real outcome metrics, even though you still may be working in a feature mode, like build feature ABC. But if you're tracking outcomes, you have a great product strategy, or a product strategy that is not 100% done, baked, but still there, that you can use as a lens to prioritize. I think that's a great sign. When prioritizing is done with a rubric, even if it's a imperfect rubric, that's a great sign that you have a product operating model that is working or is on the stages to work better.
Great, adding a quantifiable element to it. Thanks so much. All right. I think at this moment, we don't have any other questions. So what I will do is I will share Hitesh's info. If you want to get in touch with Hitesh, connect with him on LinkedIn using the information that we're displaying here. And if you're curious about Dragonboat as being the platform to manage your entire product operating model, as we discussed, check us out at the link we'll share in the chat and book a demo today. So thank you, everybody. Thank you so much, Hitesh, for sharing your knowledge, sharing your experience. We look forward to having you again on the CPO series. And thank you so much to our lovely audience.
Thank you. Thanks, Alyssa. Thanks, everybody. Take care.